Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Barbados is to become a republic by October 2021. This story takes the lead in our 944th edition of Caribbean Perspective for Thursday, 17th September 2020. Details after this important message.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. Stetson Babb of Starcom News Network of Barbados reports that Barbados' Governor General in her throne speech announced that Barbados is to take on Republican status by October of 2021. Small amounts of marijuana for recreational use to be decriminalized and same-sex unions to be recognized.
The Barbados government has outlined an extensive series of economic stimulus measures aimed at putting thousands of people back to work and saving dozens of businesses, especially in the tourism sector, from collapse. The debt reduction aspect of the country's austerity program is also to be paused for 2 years to give the country time to recover. These were among a list of announcements by the Governor General, Dame Sandra Mason, delivering the throne speech during this morning's state opening of Parliament held at the Lloyders Conservative Centre. Dame Sandra set the stage by highlighting the devastating impact the COVID-19 pandemic has had on the Barbados economy and especially the tourism sector. At the same time, she noted that Barbados has been praised for its success in limiting the spread of the virus, which she called a phenomenal achievement. But she stressed that Barbados must not let its guard down. Dame Sandra vowed that the government will do everything possible to ensure that at this time of pandemic-induced economic hardship, no one, as she puts it, falls through the cracks. Starting with a 12-month, $40 million Barbados dollar COVID-19 relief program. There will also be a $300 million program that the Governor General says is intended to counter the implosion of the private economy, especially in the tourism sector where thousands have been put out of work. The stimulus scheme is called the Barbados Employment and Sustainable Transformation, or BEST plan. Companies benefiting will be required to support local manufacturers, farmers, and entertainers. Meantime, the Governor General said that tourism bookings for November and December are looking good and listed a series of tourism-related construction projects that will create hundreds of jobs. Another major announcement was Barbados' break from the monarchy. Dame Sandra also announced that while government will, as promised, hold a referendum on legalizing marijuana use, the Drug Abuse and Prevention Act will be amended so that people will not be arrested and jailed for use of small amounts of the drug, freeing the police to pursue other matters. And the government also said that while a referendum will be held on same-sex marriage, it felt it was the right thing to do on grounds of human and civil rights to recognize some same-sex civil unions. Stetson Babb in Barbados.
According to a Reuters report out of Caracas, Venezuela's chief prosecutor, Frederick, on Monday announced charges of terrorism and weapons trafficking against an alleged United States spy who was detained last week in the South American country. Saab said the U.S. citizen Matthew John Heath was plotting attacks against Venezuela's oil industry and electricity system. The OPEC member country, mired in a 6-year economic crisis, is currently experiencing fuel shortages due to a collapse in output from its oil refineries as well as U.S. sanctions. The U.S. State Department had no immediate comment. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro last week announced the capture of an unnamed U.S. citizen arrested while allegedly spying on the country's Amway and Cardon refineries in western Falcon state while carrying specialized weapons and large amounts of cash. Pro-government media published Heath's name over the weekend. A U.S. government source who spoke on condition of anonymity said Washington was investigating Venezuela's authorities' claims and advised skepticism. Saab said Heath was not carrying a passport and had entered illegally via the Colombian border, but that authorities found a passport photocopy hidden in one of his shoes. He also said Heath was carrying a coin linking him to the Central Intelligence Agency without providing details, and said he had previously worked for a private military contractor. Saabs added that 3 Venezuelan citizens, including one member of the military, were arrested and charged with treason as part of the alleged plot. They tried to fill the country with blood. Saab said the Venezuelan state had managed to neutralize the plans to attack the oil industry and national electric system. Caracas last month sentenced 2 former U.S. soldiers to 20 years in prison for their role in a May incursion aimed at ousting Maduro.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
Senior counsel out of Trinidad and Tobago, Martin Daly, is backing up claims by the Commission of Police regarding the public health regulations being applied to private property. But Daly believes the Commissioner has erred in 2 other aspects. More in this TV6 News report with Alicia Boucher.
Suggestions that a police service operated in a classist and racist manner have been made in some quarters following the handling of the Bayside pool party, which was juxtapositioned against the Sea Lots incident. Police Commissioner Gary Griffith has strongly denied that class or race had anything to do with it, identifying the similarities as well as the differences between both scenarios. A private place versus a public one, no one being charged in either case, and persons trying to escape from police. But Senior Counsel Martin Daly says the public isn't wrong for highlighting what was believed to be chalk and cheese in both cases, where it was felt that those at Bayside got off without even a slap on the wrist, while those at Sea Lots were made to endure a different type of treatment.
But they were treated in a way that many of us considered demeaning. Yes, they may have used obscene language. Yes, they may have tried to escape. But they were demeaned, and therefore there's now an image in people's minds that if you belong to the class of person that is unfortunately described as cockroach, you're going to be treated one way, and if you're a shapely, fair-skinned woman in a private pool, you're going to be treated a different way.
In fact, Daly believes the TTPS has to take some responsibility for that narrative.
If they had not demeaned what they considered to be an unfortunate class of person, if they had not demeaned people like that, people wouldn't be making these strong comparisons about, look what these people are getting away with, and you're making people lie down on the ground. And they must treat everybody with equal dignity.
Daly knows that during situations involving gun violence, a different police response would apply. However, the attorney isn't only laying blame on the police service, but also the country's leaders. He says some are falling short on the job, losing sight of the need for sensitivity, therefore placing the country in a bad place where the treatment of people is concerned. On the issue of whether police can apply the public health regulations to private property, Daly says no.
It is clear to me that the regulations do not permit the police to enter private property, provided the private property has not been converted to a public space by someone trying to have a payfet or a gambling den or any other one of these, notorious activities. But once it's an exclusively private event, the police can't go in there.
However, Daly calls what appeared to be a public squabble between the Prime Minister and the Police Commissioner unfortunate and filled with intemperate language, saying it only serves to cause confusion. He believes adjustments to the language need to be made on both sides.
But at the same time, I don't think that someone in the Office of Commissioner of Police, Chief of Defense Staff in any law enforcement agency can use language that might imply that the Prime Minister was speaking out of improper motive or motivated by unpleasant things such as hypocrisy.
Alicia Boucher, TV6 News.
A coalition member of Parliament in Guyana, Raphael Trotman, has warned the current administration not to become entangled in the affairs of other states, while also accusing the PPPC administration of flouting the Constitution of Guyana and committing several illegalities by passing budgets for constitutional agencies outside of the required framework. More in this report from Wendell Badri of HGP Nightly News.
Honorable Member of the National Assembly, Raphael Trotman, has accused the PPPC government of committing multiple illegalities by passing budgets for several constitutional agencies in violation of the Financial Management and Accountability Amendment Act of 2015. The Member of Parliament pointed out that at the time of the presentation of estimates for the constitutional agencies, there had not been any appointments for the posts of Speaker of the National Assembly, Minister of Finance, nor Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. Further, Mr. Trotman spoke to the expected arrival of the U.S. Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, on Thursday, urging the Ali administration not to allow this state to lose its dignity and self-respect, trade its sovereignty, and right to self-determination and non-interference in the affairs of other states.
There has been too much progress made in the last 5 years. And we took our case to the National Court of Justice, seeking a peaceful solution. And it will be a travesty of monumental and epic proportions if, Mr. Speaker, we found ourselves in a hot mess and threatened.
During the electoral impasse of 2020, the coalition government had stressed tremendously that Guyana is a sovereign state and there should be no interference by other states in its internal affairs. Further, then-President David Granger had denied a request by the U.S. administration to establish a medium-wave frequency in Guyana, which would have been used to broadcast programs and messages to neighboring Venezuela. Meanwhile, on the subject of constitutional reform, the Member of Parliament posited,
A mere 3 sentences were used to portray the PPP's intentions on constitutional reform in the budget.
Former Prime Minister Moses Nagamutu had resoundingly called for constitutional reform among a host of political commentators and leaders. Mr. Trotman further alluded to unfulfilled promises by the current administration in its 2020 emergency budget. Wendell Badri for the HGP Nightly News.
More glowing tributes were paid to distinguished author and trade unionist Sir Keithlin Smith during an official funeral in Antigua. Here is ABS's Terry Andrew.
Sir Keithlin was a fighter. It was a recurring theme about the man whose life was celebrated. The tributes rang out from those whom he nurtured and taught all his professional life. I never met anyone with his energy, determination, and courage. His lesson was clear. It wasn't good enough to be the best in your field. You had to do more, create new fields, and in so doing, change the way everyone else saw workers and understood that workers have rights.
The eulogy delivered by former Prime Minister Baldwin Spencer, who says Sir Keithlin has etched his footprints in the sands of times.
Sir Keithlin toiled unselfishly and relentlessly and indeed courageously for well over 50 years of his life in the cause of justice, fair play, and overall nation building through education and training, social and political activism in Antigua and Barbados and elsewhere. Well done, Brother Smith. Well done, Brother Keithlin Byron.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.